That's what I've been trained to do, is to develop some pedagogy, right? Develop some teaching methodology that will provide to you with some skill which is relevant for your future. And it's really hard for me to assess what will be a good choice of pedagogy for the class based on what is my view of what you guys will end up doing once you graduate. And so I mean, personally, right, as a teacher, I'm in this place in which I cannot assess clearly what are the skills that you're going to need when you go and graduate. And of course, the discussion is also regarding my own job. When I try to teach a class, I have to remember that now you guys have access to generative AI for static. Okay, so I'm sure that none of you is living under a rock. So you all use ChatGPT for understanding homework, for understanding slides, for understanding textbook, and it's clear that ChatGPT already has many advantages for you guys over a professor, right? So ChatGPT is always available, so it doesn't sleep. It's fully personalized, so you can list, for example, the things that you do not understand, and they will personalize the answer to you. I cannot personalize my answer to you. I have to craft my answer to my expectation on the knowledge of the full class. It can write better code than me. I cannot write Python code as well and as quickly as ChatGPT does. And of course, it's more patient and understanding, right? I think professors, they are generally very empathic people, but a lot of us don't really have the patience that ChatGPT has in talking to people. And of course, these generative AIs, they're still missing some fundamental aspects of their that a teacher has, right? So the ability to provide formal logic, really a deep understanding of the references, the ability to craft precise and insightful pictures and plots. But of course, these are all aspects that we expect are going to improve in the future, right? So also for me as a teacher, I have to imagine that now I'm even a smaller part of what is I'm even a smaller tool of the set of tools that you guys have for acquiring new skills. So I have to assess my own role in your life and your goal of teaching, of learning new skills with these new tools. And if we think about the role of the professor through the years, of course, has been becoming more and more marginalized, right? Because at the beginning there were books. So if you had the questions, you didn't have a teacher, you would go to a book. Then you started looking for the web. Then you start having YouTube videos, and now you have YouTube videos that answer all possible questions that you have regarding to a certain topic. And so things have been changing for a long time, and the role of a teacher in conveying knowledge to the student has always been decreasing because teachers are scarce. Okay, there are only few tens of thousands of us, but of course you can have many more books, many more YouTube video, many more documents on the web. And so of course, so we have to, as a professor, these tools also help us grow and give us new opportunity to us, so we can teach a better class every time by taking into account that these tools complement partially our job. But of course we have to recognize that the situation is changing rapidly with the advance of Gen AI. So I think we can use this plot here to reason about the future of what is happening. So this is a very nice plot from the NASA developed originally, and it describes the technology readiness level. Okay, so you see here that there is a temperature, a thermometer, and there are different levels. And to the different levels correspond a different technology readiness temperature. Okay, so at the technology readiness 1, it's when the technology only is available on a laboratory and it cannot be reproduced. Technology level 2 and 3 is where a technology starts testing the laboratory of let's say of a basic science, and then there's some larger laboratory, let's say an engineering laboratory, or some other testing laboratories, some other not so basic laboratory. Then level 4 and 5 is when there is a startup that is developing this technology, and level 6 is when somebody starts developing some practical application for a certain technology. Level 7 and 8 is when this technology enters the development in terms of subsystems. So you can have a chip, for example, that implement a specific algorithm. And then technology readiness level 9 is when this technology is readily available to everybody at very low cost and very low, let's say, low barrier of usage. So we can think about this technology readiness level, and I think this is a good metaphor to think about what is the role of generative AI in this class, right? In this technology readiness. And in my mind, what will happen is that generative AI will be able to accelerate the transitioning from, let's say, technology readiness 8 to 9, from 7 to 9, meaning that if there is a technology and it's been well understood, there are a lot of documentation on this technology, there are a lot of understanding of this technology, generative AI will speed up the development of these technology readiness levels. For example, you can imagine that, let's say there is a new sensor for vibration using piezoelectric, right? And once this sensor is being manufactured, then technology AI, the generative AI will be able to speed up the application of this new sensor to some other chipboard, to some commercial products, and so on and so forth. So that, in my mind, my current vision is that generative AI will focus mostly on these technology readiness levels, the higher technology readiness levels, and so what we should focus as workers is in more research and development, more technical details, because for these technology readiness levels, there is not much material, there's not much understanding, the logic is not there yet. So human will probably focus, jobs that will remain will probably focus on this warmer technology readiness levels. And so what we should do is that we should try to prepare people for this new era in which Gen AI will help speed up part of this technology readiness. And it's clear that when we move to this technology readiness levels, to this decolder technology readiness levels, then what matters more and more to people are soft skills. Okay, so if you have to design a chip for something, you can lock yourself in a room and come up after 1 year with the perfect chip design to do signal processing for a certain sensor. But if you have to be more focused on research, then you have to be able to exchange ideas, to work in group, to develop understanding across different science backgrounds, to interpollinate across communities, across scientific communities. And so my expectation is that the soft skill will be as important to your job as your technical skills. Okay? Nobody will be hired if they have only technical skills, because if they cannot work in a collaborative environment that foster research and development, then they will not be useful for a company, let's say. And so, what are these soft skills? Right? It's a combination. We're going to discuss it later. Right? It's a very strange combination of people skills, social skills, communication skills, and emotional intelligence that allow and facilitate people for working in groups. So this term was coined in the 1960s by the US Army, and it was coined because they realized that when they had a job description for, let's say, a soldier or for a member of the army, the job description will have to necessarily define some technical skill. Can you use a rifle? Can you load a shotgun? Can you operate a radio? But then there were another set of skills that were not detailed anywhere, that they were as important to the success of a mission as the technical skills. So in their mind, hard skills are the ones that have to do with hardware, and so the opposite of hard skills are soft skills, right? And so as a definition, we will discuss it later, as a definition is very loose, right? But basically, it comes to the recognition that these skills are necessary to motivate people to work in group, to be successful when operating as a group. And it has been long recognized by the management community, right? That what is required per job is, let's say, 15% hard skill and 85% soft skills. If you go to work for a company, you will soon realize that you spend 1 or 2 hours dealing with some technical skill, right? And the rest of the times, what you're doing is that you are passing information from the people below you to the people above you in the hierarchy, from the people to your left to the people to your right. So if you don't facilitate the transmission of information in all directions from your position, then you are not useful, because the information needs to flow. Decision must be taken in both directions, right? And so it is necessary for your job that you're able to facilitate the fact that a company has to operate as a single entity, not as a union of single decision makers. Okay, and we're going to spend more time later, but I think a good definition of this soft skill goes back to this citation from this quote from Dostoevsky, right? So if you like the Russian Russian writers, you will know this line in Anna Karenina that says that all happy families are happy in the same way. So when you see a happy family, you know what are the good qualities that make a family a happy family. But if you see a family which is unhappy, then there are many different ways in which this family can be unhappy, right? And I think it's something similar, right? So if you want to be an effective communicator, and if you want to be a team member and a leader, then it's clear what qualities make a good team member. But if you are ineffective in your soft skills, there are many different ways in which you can be ineffective, okay? And so if you want to start with some numbers, you can look at this list of 11 soft skills. It's clear that communication, leadership, teamwork, time management, they are all skills that are necessary for you to be a team member, a good team member. But of course, this list is only partial, meaning that as all definitions of complex concept, this is just a list which is useful up to a certain understanding. And for sure, another aspect which is relevant for us, especially for the context in which we are in the class, and for example, given the composition of the class today, it's clear there are also some cultural aspects that the students have to be able to understand. And this is something that Taiwanese students generally are less familiar with and less exposed to, because Taiwan is still as a very low, as a multicultural society is not as small. As a multicultural society is not as multicultural as, for example, Europe or the US. But this class, for example, is a good combination of foreign students and local students. And I think it's good for everybody to understand that there are many cultural aspects, many cultural aspects to communication and to collaborative work that most of you have not been exposed to in a way which is sufficient for you to engage in a true multicultural working environment. Right? So working environments are more and more becoming multicultural, meaning that the company has to operate across different cultures. So the manufacturing is here in Taiwan, then you have sales in the US, you have assembly in Mexico, you have manufacturing of some components in Europe. And so when people have to work together, they have to work together across different cultures, and it is very hard. It is a new skill that maybe your parents didn't need to have, but it's necessary for you to have. And for example, what are 4 dimensions in which we can describe cultural differences, let's say between Taiwan and Europe, between Taiwan and the US, or let's say, or Africa, for example. So there are 4 dimensions here that I want you to think about, just in terms of understanding what are the difficulties of being a good communicator when you will go and have a job. So first of all, there are monochronous cultures and polychronous cultures. So some cultures, they really value punctuality. So if you go to a German and to an American, they really value that you are punctual at work. But if you work with, for example, a South European, then time is very, very flexible, and people are more important than time. So it happens all the time for me that I live both in Germany and in Italy, that you set an appointment at a certain time to meet a certain person, to have a certain meeting, and the German person is there exactly on time, and the French person or the Italian person are like 10, 15 minutes late. That's because there are some cultural aspects. And if you are late to a meeting in a monochronous culture, people will think that you're being rude. But if you are in a polychronous culture, people will think, oh, he was taking care of some other person, right? He was focused on a relationship with another person, so there is nothing negative about that. Something which is very important is also the level of context. There are some low context societies and there are some high context societies. For example, Americans are a very low context society, while Japanese are a very high context society, meaning that an American person would be focused in expressing as clearly as possible what is the content of the communication that they have, and their focus will be exclusively on the verbal communication. Okay, an American person, often we are generalizing, so we understand that these are general attitudes, right? So I'm taking a broad average over the culture, right? But generally speaking, an American person will be focused on their verbal communication so that they exactly communicate what is necessary, nothing less, nothing more, and they will disregard some other non-verbal aspect of the communication, such as hand gestures or posture or let's say gaze and so on. Whether you can think about a Japanese society where if you go to a restaurant and they tell you, oh, I hope you are enjoying the tea that you're offering to you, then you understand that they're telling you this because they already give you 4 cups of free tea over 20 minutes. And so which means that you spend 20 minutes at the restaurant sitting down and drinking tea while they were expecting you to leave the table so that they can serve another client, right? So the context, it's very complicated. And by telling you something about tea, they're actually trying to communicate to you that you spend too much time in the restaurant. Okay, so this is the difference between low context and high context. And you can imagine that in a business communication, if you're having a meeting, there are many different ways in which communication between 2 groups of people can completely fall apart if they don't have an understanding of each other. Context. Then there are more private space or less private space. This is also something that, for example, you observe in the Indian culture, right? The Indian culture, they usually have a very small personal bubble. And then information flow, right? So some people are, they plan very well the information flow, so they are slow and methodic. Whether some other culture, they tend to move more rapidly and spread the information flow more rapidly. So remember these 4 dimensions and try to see what is the role of this in your success as a part of a company that is trying to achieve some goal. And hopefully, as I said, since the composition of the class is usually pretty split between foreign and local, one of my objectives is also to allow you to understand these cultural aspects of communication. Yeah, as I said, the context, I think we already spent some time discussing context. Oh. Sorry, guys, my slides just froze. Okay. So, as I said, given all this, the situation, all this context, generative AIs, the change of the nature of work, the expectation that work will be moved toward more the conceptual and ideative part, and the fact that I want to expose you guys to some cultural context, then the methodology, the pedagogy that come out on all of this thinking about the situation has been challenge-based learning. So what is challenge-based learning? Basically, it's a framework for teaching in which you focus on a learning experience in groups, 4 groups of students, and there is that exposes really the student to this communication aspect and leadership aspects. So in Europe, this is a very common framework that has been tried in many different universities, right? Aalborg, Trento, TUE, UAB. And generally, different universities have different flavors. So this is the flavor that I'll be experimenting with for this semester. So there will be a challenge for every 2 weeks. This challenge will be addressed by groups of students. And generally, we will have different groups for different challenges. And the project, the challenges, will be presented in class synchronously to an elevator pitch, which means that every week we're going to have some time dedicated to an elevator pitch in which students come and they discuss how they're addressing this challenge. And at the end of the challenge, the students will write a report and do a little video to describe the solution to this. And then the submissions will be evaluated by other students. And generally, the students will also score the performance of the other students in the group. Okay, let's go through this a little bit more. So all the details are in these documents. So the documents try to be as complete as possible. If you have some comments, leave some comments. Otherwise, I'll give you an overview here of how things are going to go. So as we said, every 2 weeks, we're going to have a challenge. The challenge will be assigned either to Kaggle or E3. This will depend on the students. And the report will be either as a Juniper notebook or a .py file plus some slides. We're going to ask you to do a quick YouTube video to describe your project. And then there is going to be an elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch means that you have 10-15 minutes to present your project in class to everybody and to me, and I'm going to provide feedback and suggestions. And then after every submission, we're going to distribute Google Forms to everybody, and people will be asked to score, let's say, 3 submissions out of 10, and then you'll be asked to score the work of your teammates. Okay. So the class timeline is as follows. We're going to have 3 phases. Okay. In the first phase, we're going to have 3 challenges. And for these challenges, the group members will be chosen random. So in the first phase of the class, we want everybody to have the chance to work with everybody else so that people can really get to know each other and understand a little bit what are the capabilities and the strengths and weaknesses of everybody. Then after phase 1, we will have phase 1 will last until the midterm week. During the midterm week, there is no work, there is no challenge, so you take a break, and we will release the profile of the students. So the profile of the students will say, oh, the student is good at doing this and that and that. And after the phase 1 is completed, there are going to be 3 more challenges in which we identify a set of leaders, and the leaders will decide the members that are part of the group. And then there is going to be a 3rd phase. In the 3rd phase, we're going to have a final project. In the final project, your guys are supposed to be all out, right? So you're supposed to form a group as you want and work on a project which is more focused on creativity and outcome and some demo of how the project goes. Very good. So the deliverables, as we said, is an elevator pitch, which is done in class, and you will be asked to present and to talk about it. Then there is going to be a report, and the report will have the video, code, and slides. Of course, the slides are going to be the one that you use in the video, and the code is going to be either a Juniper notebook or a Python code. Very good. Since you have a challenge every 2 weeks, you're going to have an elevator. You can have 2 elevator pitch. One elevator pitch will be a mid-challenge elevator pitch, and then it's going to be the final project elevator pitch. The mid-challenge elevator pitch, it's more for me to see your progress and for you to ask me questions. So if there is a challenge, you are working on it for 2 weeks, I expect you to by the first week, you'll have some questions, you'll have some ideas, you will have something that you want to run by me. So the mid-challenge report is mostly to provide and discuss the solution. And the final project elevator pitch is there for us to understand that you were able to complete the project. So basically, the mid-challenge report is mostly to ask questions in case you have some doubts and you're stuck on something. Then let's discuss the evaluation policy briefly. So in the elevator in phase one, you're gonna have the elevator pitch. Then we're gonna ask you to evaluate the team members, and this is what we call the intra-team evaluation report. Intra means inside, so it's inside the team evaluation report. And then you will be asked to provide a cross-team evaluation report. So you're going to be given 3 challenges, and for these 3 challenges, you're going to rank them. You're going to discuss the ranking later. In phase 2, you're going to again receive part of the grade from the elevator pitch, which I will provide, and then you will just have a cross-team evaluation 4. So again, you will be asked to evaluate 3 other teams. And for phase 3, there's going to be again an elevator pitch grade, and then there's going to be a cross-team evaluation 4, and then there's going to be a final grade that I'm going to give to all the different challenges. Okay, let me see if there is any questions so far. Any questions so far? Any question so far? So next we're gonna discuss about the evaluation forms. Okay, so if you have any questions so far, let me know. I think we went at least 10-15 slides about the organization. So if you have any questions, you can either mute yourself and ask, or you can type in chat. Okay, so let's discuss a little bit the intergroup and the intragroup evaluation form. So in the intergroup evaluation form, this form is there to identify what role the student has and the level of contribution. Okay. So generally, we want students to identify themselves into 3 different roles. One is the leader, one is the doer, one is the thinker. The leader is the person that gets everybody together and provides a vision for the project. The doer is the one that generally writes code, writes practical solution. And there is the thinker, which is the one that focuses on the let's say on the theoretical aspects or more on the ideation aspect of the project. We thought about this for a long time, and we realized that it is really useful for people to indicate the role that other team members usually take, because we see generally that for sure the doer and the thinker are very polar opposite roles. There are some people that prefer to write code, to see in action what they are able to do. And then there are more people that prefer to sit down, read books, think about problems, try to explore new solutions, be more creative. So we really see a difference in the student attitude in these 2 roles. So it is useful for us to tell you which role the student prefer, because it's usually a good way to select the team members for phase 2. And the leaders is something which is very controversial in Taiwan in this particular cultural context, because you need somebody that puts together the work and gives deadline and get people engaged in the project. And it's really hard to find for us to find people that are willing to do this. So as I said in the email that I sent before the class, it's always very hard for us to find leaders, and the role of the leader is also clear for us, which is engaging people in the project, making sure that people deliver on time. And and it's really hard for us to find leaders. So I'm gonna ask you later if anybody wants to volunteer for the leader group. So as I said, this is for the intra evaluation. So you're gonna indicate what is the level of contribution and which role is there. And then the intra-group, it's actually easier because it's just you look at the report, that the group made, and then you indicate the correctness and completeness of the report, and then the clarity and effectiveness of the video. Very good. So the way we are gonna rank things is through the overranking. So this overranking, it's nothing complicated. Basically, we want to avoid people to repeat the same grade from multiple groups. We want everybody to have a unique grade. And let me give you an example of how the overranking works. So let's say that you have to score 3 teams or 4 teams, and you have to assign a score between 1 and 10. 10 is the best, 1 is the worst. and score cannot be repeated. And the difference between two scores indicates the difference between contributions. So for example, again, let's go to these 5 teams that you want to score between 1 and 10. So you score, for example, team C is 1. It means that this team didn't do anything. The report is not there, the code is not there. But then you also score team E, and this team E is the best team ever. So they did everything perfectly. So team C gets score 1, team E gets score 10. Then you have 2 teams that did an average job, but they really are close. And this is team A and team B. So you rank them across the average. So the difference between the ranking is just 1. One is rank 4, the other one is rank 5, meaning that if you had to choose, they did a job which is almost identical, but one was a little bit better than the other. So the difference in ranking is very low. And then there was, let's say, team D, which you recognize did twice this work as team A. So you put it at twice the ranking, but still it's below team E, which was the perfect. Good. Grading policy, very easy. Phase 1 is only 15%. Phase 1 is the riskier one because the teams are made at random. So, so sometimes you get with some teammates that don't want to work, or the communication is not there, the leader is not engaging everybody. So sometimes it happens that the challenge doesn't go well. So we don't want to give too much weight to this. Phase 2 is going to be 25% of the score, because of course now you can choose your teammates, and everything is should be ramping up. And most of the score comes from phase 3, which is the last project, and it's 40% of the final score. Okay, so let's stop a second. I see I have a question in the chat, and meanwhile, ask me if you have other question. Okay, so is it possible to have a physical class? The answer is no. No. So I'm currently in a sabbatical leave. So I'm traveling across Europe visiting different universities. So I'm not physically on campus, so cannot be physically. But of course, after COVID, we all know that we can very happily interact online. So I'm running my lab for more than 6 months online, so there's no particular problem doing that. Of course, if you want to meet physically, you should meet physically with your team member, right? The class is going to be 1 hour per week. So the frontal class, it's not very relevant. And then if you want to interact physically, you should interact physically with the other members. As I said, my role should be diminished in this class, right? So you should not be looking to cooperate with me physically. You should cooperate physically with the students. And then, of course, the TAs are on campus. So if you want to interact with the TAs in person, the TAs are there. But yeah, so this is my answer to you. So I'm abroad. I will be abroad for all the semester. The elevator pitch, I think it's more convenient to everybody to do it online. And then if you interact physically, it will be either with the TA or with your roommates. Is that a good answer? Very good. As I said, the purpose here is for me to reduce the role of informed teaching, right? And focus on the interaction between you guys. So actually, this is something that we can take a little bit to discuss. So as I said, we always ask as I said in the email, we always ask the teaching development office to help us pool the students, because we want to see what is the response of the students to this new typology of class, to this challenge-based learning. And what comes up from the report that we obtain from this office is always that student never meet physically. So I think this is a very Taiwanese thing. I don't know if it's also true for other countries, but basically after COVID, the students are completely used to interacting online. They're finding more comfortable. I think they also find it less conducive to conflicts, right? So if there is a conflict, students have the feeling that they can avoid the conflict if the interaction is online. And then So in our experiences, the students very rarely meet in person. The only case in which they meet in person is when they are in the same room, because we have a lot of roommates that take the class together, because phase 2 and phase 3, they can work together. And yeah, that's it. So if you want to have a class in the physical room, I mean, I will be joining online, and you guys can do the elevator pitch from the class. So it's not a big deal. You can do it this way. It's yeah. Okay. Other questions regarding this? Okay, so I'll give you 1 more minute to ask questions. Let's see if there is any other comment. Let me check Slack if somebody has any questions on Slack. Okay, no questions so far. Okay, good. So as I said, if you want to give the pitch presentation class, we can organize it with the PAs. So we can discuss with the PAs, and basically we will be showing the video of the call in the class, in the physical classroom, and then when you want to interact, you just use the microphone and the presentation in the classroom. So no problem. Okay, very good. So the class usually is very generous with grades. Okay, so if you heard somebody that took the class before, they will tell you that we are usually very generous with grades, because students, again, tend to be very concerned with the grades, and they sort of disregard a lot of other important things that happen in a class and just focus on the grade. So we tend to be very generous with the grades. So don't worry about the grades, please. So, but how would you get the best grade? So the idea is that in phase 1, it's there for you to try to meet everybody. So you want to make some good connection in phase 1, and then in phase 2, you should fight to get in the best groups. So what we observe from our past experience is that usually the strong people, they tend to coalesce in the same groups. So you have to really compete to get in the best groups. And then in phase 3, the challenge is that you have to keep pushing hard, right? Because it's toward the end of the semester, it's the second part of the semester, everybody loses energy. So if you want to have the best grade, you just have to keep your engagement in the phase 3. Very good. This is the strategy. Class materials. So as I said, all classes are online. Frontal teaching should be the role of the frontal teaching should be diminished. We're going to record the classes. So if you cannot make it to class or whatever, so we'll just make the classes available online. If you want to meet physically, there is a classroom time, and you can meet in class to discuss. Generally, we are assigned 3 hours. 1 hour will be for the elevator pitch, generally. 1 hour and 15 will be for frontal teaching, because I'll just go through a set of slides per week, so not much front teaching. And then if you want to meet with me, we can set up a Google Meet, very, very easy. There will be synchronous. And then asynchronously, we use Slack for communicating. Okay, so I don't know how many of you are familiar with Slack. Let me actually ask in chat, are you familiar with Slack? Question mark 0/1. So Slack is a group, group productivity tool, right? So in my lab, we use it very, very often. The fact that you never use Slack tells me that you've never had to work in work groups, right? It's really a business management type of tool, group work type of tool, and I see that nobody uses it. Very good. So we don't expect you, of course, to put Slack in your computer and to use the app if it's only for this group. What I can tell you is that E3 is insufficient for our purposes, because if you want to message on E3, it's so clunky. Then the one-to-one DM, personal messages, direct messages are a disaster. When I send an email, there is a delay of like 10 minutes before the email is obtained. If you write to me on E3, then E3 sends me a message that there is a message. Send me an email that there is a message on E3, and then I have to go. So it's just a disaster. And to give you an idea why we like Slack so much, let me just show you my Slack briefly. It's because it's really good for groups to work together. So some of you will end up using Line, I think. Some of you will end up using Facebook to communicate with group members. But you will discover, I think, yourself the lack of tools for cooperation beyond Slack, right? So you'll tell me how you feel. I just want to show you my Slack very briefly to give you an idea of what I use it for and why we like it so much. Slack, should. So just to give you an idea, right? So I have multiple channels, right? So one channel is for cooperating with other universities. So this is a research group in Texas A&M, right? Then this is a research group in Italy, and this is a research group in Austria, right? So these first three are like this. This is the Slack channel of my group. Then I have a Slack channel for a conference that I organized, and I have a Slack channel for student competitions, right? So I organize, let's say, 2-3 student competition a year, and I have a Slack channel for all the different competitions. So this was a conference. This was the IoT Society competition. So this was a competition last year, and you see that we have like a few hundred people in this channel. This was another competition that I did, and then I have my classes, another competition, another competition, and then the class this year. So this is just to give you the idea that when you like, I really like this tool because it doesn't interfere with your personal life. So it's not a tool for personal communication like Facebook or Line. So there is nothing personal. And it has a lot of tools for communicating with a large group of people. Communicating, then choosing a specific subset of people to communicate with, keeping track of material, keeping track of discussion. So it's try to give it a try. We find it very, very useful. And personally, I spend all my communication, all my professional communication, they basically go through Slack. It's rare that I communicate with something over email if it's not somebody from my daughter's generation that expects an email, right? So give it a try. As I said, we don't expect you to start using Slack for this channel, but please if you don't want to use it, if you don't want to install the app, make sure that the notifications are there, so that you receive an email notification if there is a new message over Slack. Meaning that if I post something, then you will receive an email, and then you can go check online. Of course, it makes it more difficult for you to access the information. But if I send you an email through E3, it will be the same thing, right? You receive an email with a notification that something happened on E3. It will not be instantaneous, but the communication will be there. And also, if you want to communicate with me or the TA, I think we all use Slack pretty aggressively, and so usually it's faster, much faster, to talk to us on Slack than on E3, and also because for Slack we have a phone, right? So we are accessible even if we are in transit or we're doing something else. If it's a quick question, we can answer quickly using the phone, because of course there is no E3 of a mobile, right? So that's a big limitation when people are traveling all the time and they're going from meeting to meeting. So that's it. Good. Now let's discuss about the challenges. So usually we provide the challenge description as a PDF. We release the challenge before class so that you can ask questions. And usually the class is on Wednesday. We release the challenge on Friday. So you have 3-4 days to look at the challenge and then ask questions if something is not clear. Usually we write the challenge for the specific class every year differently, right? So we have different challenges every time. And so this means that the challenges are very relevant, right? Are very much related to contemporary problems. But they are more prone to have some typos or some parts that are unclear and so on and so forth. So you can ask, you have plenty of time to ask questions. And then you can ask questions to me, to the TA for this year, and to the TAs from last year. So the TAs from last year are also in the Slack channel. We'll indicate them later. And the idea is that the TA for this year, they will be more helpful in answering questions about the challenge. But what happens often, more often than what you want to admit, is that sometimes people are really discouraged by the group. Like some people, they start working in a group and then people stop working and they get mad and they get frustrated because they are engaged with the class, they're engaged with the challenge, and some other people just drop off and they don't care. So if you have a problem of that type, you can talk to the TA from last year and they will tell you, this is the challenge of the class, right? Because it's really hard to work in groups, and sometimes people, they are not very good at working in groups and they give up. So again, we're trying a new pedagogy, last words from me. So we're trying a new pedagogy, right? So we are trying to organize the class so that people work in groups and they learn the soft skills that are necessary to work in groups. We do this because we think that this is really relevant for your future. And I explained to you at the beginning why we think that this is relevant for your future. The Taiwanese students, they tend to be very focused on grades because they think that grades will get them good jobs. And this is, in my mind, a very childish attitude, because when they go look for a job, they will not face a person that looks at their CV. They will be given an interview with a generative AI, and the generative AI can spend hours and hours asking you questions, assessing your IQ, assessing your level of knowledge, assessing your level of emotional intelligence. And if these three things don't go through, especially the emotional intelligence part, you will not get the job. So the idea that the grade or the CV will count for your hiring, it's a little bit foolish for me. Because already now, if you know anybody that got a job in Amazon and a job in Google and Facebook, you know that unless you have a PhD and you are an academic with an established career path, before you talk to anybody physically, there will be a coding interview. They will just send you a link for a coding interview, which is completely automated. And if you pass the first coding interview, then they will give you an interview on machine learning and then an interview in deep learning. So usually you have to do 3 coding interviews before you talk to anybody. Then they're going to have you chat with some generative AIs to try to assess your emotional intelligence. And then eventually you're going to talk to somebody in the team. So now this is something that you guys might not be too exposed to, but this type of interviews for emotional intelligence are very, very tricky. Because as human, we think, well, we know that they're trying to evaluate our willingness to, for example, to work in group, to cooperate, to reduce conflict. So I'm going to give the answer, which I think are the best answer to convey to the interviewer the fact that I am a team member participant, like a team participant. I'm somebody that thinks about working for the team, and we're willing to work late, is willing to work hard to meet deadlines. But the thing is that this type of emotional intelligence quiz, they are so smart and they have been trained with so many people that in the testing, they account for the fact that you are trying to give the answer that would please them the most, right? So the reverse psychology in this test is crazy. And there is no way in which you can fool them. If you think that it's only a multiple, for example, it's just a multiple, it's a multiple answer test. It's like a deadline is coming up in 2 days. You know that your team members is sick. What are you going to do? talk to your boss, work hard on talk to your boss, and I don't know, let the deadline pass. Let's say you have these three answers, and you think, oh, of course, the best thing to do will be to say that I work hard and I create less problems from others. But then through answering the other questions, the team designer will figure out that you actually were not sincere in your answer, and you were just trying to please the interviewer. So the idea that you can, let's say, fool this emotional intelligence question is completely foolish. So this is to say that this is what people want to know. People want to know that you are a team member participant, and they can assess your IQ through an interview. They can assess your emotional intelligence through an interview, and nobody will let's say, the relevance of your CV is for sure reduced now that there are these automated tools for evaluating people. And again, some of you, I know that they think that the impact of generative AI will not touch the specific jobs in Taiwan, or it will not. That Taiwan is not so focused on software. So the impact of generative AI, it's mostly on software, and so you guys are safe from having to compete with AIs. But this is also foolish, right? And I think you can just talk to your parents. Your parents' generation should be the one that saw the explosion of the internet, for example, and you can see very well that they saw the people, let's say in the 80s, in the early 2000s, that didn't adapt quickly enough to sending emails, to work online, to use computer programs efficiently, that they were just phased out of jobs because their productivity was too low. So these type of changes, we imagine that they move slowly across generation, but actually they are much faster than what you imagine. Okay, very good. This is the spiel for today. I'm gonna stop here regarding the discussion over the class. I'll give you, let's say, 5 minutes to walk around, and then 5 minutes to ask questions. And then after this, I'll go through the slides on soft skills and what are my thoughts on soft skills. And this is not, of course, by now you should see that this is not necessary for you to participate to any of the frontal classes. If you want to stay here, we can discuss about soft skills. If you don't want, you just go. If you want to watch the video later, you watch the video later. If you don't want to watch the video, you don't watch the video. You guys decide how much of the online interaction with me you value. If you value 0 of it, there's no problem for me. If you decide that you want to study independently and you just want to show up for the elevator pitch and don't see me for any other amount of time, that's perfectly fine with me. Teaching is not about my ego, thank God. This just to keep in mind. Then by Friday, we are gonna announce the first groups and announce the challenge 0. So challenge 0 is gonna be the first challenge. It will not be graded, and it's just there for you guys to see how you want to communicate across the group, see what is the preference of certain amount of people, what's more efficient for you, see if you want to meet in person or not. Challenge 0 will be very simple. And then next week, we try to have a first elevator pitch, very, very simple. When you see the challenge, you understand that it's just something fun. And then in 2 weeks, you're going to submit your challenge 0 report. Again, it's not graded, but it's just there for you to see how you submit, right? So you go on E3 and you submit from E3 and so on and so forth. Now, before I let you go to walk around a little bit and so on and so forth, please consider volunteering for being a leader. Okay, usually we give a leader a certain amount of bonus on the grades. We give them, let's say, 15% more on the grades. And I'll tell you what is the type of person that we expect to be a leader. Okay, if you are very social and you are very committed, then this is the type of person that you want to be. You want to be a leader, right? So there is no special. There's no special human quality that makes a leader, but it is really. But you need to be a very good communicator, and you need to be focused on achieving certain set of goals, right? So it looks like we need 6 leaders. Okay, usually the groups are of 5 people. We are 30, so we need 6 leaders. So we need 6%. We need roughly 10% of the students to volunteer to be a leader. If you don't volunteer to be a leader, it means that you will be, some people will be randomly selected to be a leader. So now, let's say you're a person that wants to get a good grade. It is in your interest to volunteer for a leader. because you will get a bonus in the final grade. And also, more importantly, this minimizing the risk that you have, right? Because if you are the leader of the group, then you're being recognized to be the one that leads the group. And you can minimize your risk because you can make sure that communication and teamwork works more effectively. Because usually what happens is that we assign the teams for phase one, and people wait until the very last minute to start working on the challenge. So what happens is that they just scramble in the last week to come up with the report and so forth. But if you are a team leader, then you can minimize the risk of doing poorly in the challenge, because you can say, oh, you guys work on this, you guys work on this, I work on this. You can lead the work and make sure that you are minimizing the risk that nobody works and there is a rush at the last moment. Okay, so it is 25 now. So let's have 7 minutes break. Let's have a 5 minutes break. Then we have 5 minutes question. If you don't have any questions, you keep working around. And then in 10 minutes, we have the presentation on soft skill. Okay. Okay. Very good. I'll see you back in 5 minutes. If you have any questions, otherwise I'll see you back in 10 minutes. Bye, guys. Okay, guys, let me know if there is any question regarding the class organization. Any questions you can also ask here or on Slack. Halton, how is it going? You tell me, since you're my TA. Maybe the TAs should introduce themselves. Yeah. Halton, introduce yourself briefly, come on. Is Aldo here as well?
Hi, I'm Elton, and I'm the TA for this semester. And I'm a Taiwanese, so if you have a question, you can ask me in Chinese.
Say something else about you. Where do you come from? Yeah, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about you.
So I was I'm come from NYCU when I was a college student, and I'm currently doing something like satellite communication and also like some IoT stuff. Yeah.
Very good. Where were you born? Yeah, so where do you come from in Taiwan?
Miaoli.
Miaoli. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And where do you want to go study abroad?
Probably just Japan.
Because we had a discussion yesterday. I was trying to convince him to go to Turkey or to Brazil as an exchange student, not to go to Japan, but no way to convince him about Japan. I don't know if Aldo is there. Do you see Aldo today, Aldo?
No, I didn't see him.
Yes. And maybe you had some other class or something. It's the first week, you know, a lot of students, they want to see the different classes. Okay, very good. Any other question? I'll give you 2 more minutes to ask question. Otherwise, we talk more with Aldo. I think there are a bunch of people from CS that they couldn't register. Correct? Is there anybody here from the send me a message on from CS department that couldn't register? Let me check. I think Fernando, Victor, yeah. Anybody here from CS? Because I think, yeah, there are some people from CS that they want.
I have
okay,
go
ahead.
It's my Chinese name.
So you guys are from CS, right?
Yeah.
And you need the signature to take the class, right?
Yeah. We cannot register using the system since it's limited to computer science students.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but yeah. So basically, yeah. So you have the form, right? So if you ask this, I don't know if the form from your department is the same as the form from my department. So just ask maybe your secretary to give you the form for the CS department, and then we just sign it and then return it to you, so you can take the class.
Okay, I will try today, and if I have any problem, I will send in on the Slack the form from CS in case we need.
Yes. Yeah, because then if you start, then I think there are 3 or 4 people that asked from CS. So yeah, I can do them all the same, basically, and all the same time. And then there was somebody from some other department, right? Who's from some other department? There's somebody from financial or yeah, tell me a little bit. I think there are some people that also message me because they're from some other department, right? Tell me, guys, don't be shy. Let's see, there is a nice message here. You said that you will encourage soft skill. That means that even if the group are randomly selected, if we happen to be selected with a group of people from the same country roommates, are we going to be asked to change room with people in different countries, department of university? So phase 1, you are randomly assigned. So in phase 1, you will get to know people in the class. For phase 2 and 3, you will select the people that you want in your group. I'm here to help you I'm here to help you develop your skill so that you choose the people in your group so that they are complementary, right? So that you can do the challenges effectively and quickly. I'm not here to tell you how you live your life. So if in the phase 2 and 3 you want to work with your roommate, you do what you want, okay? If then if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Let me tell you something regarding this. In phase 2 and 3, the grades are assigned uniformly across the group. Means that if the group takes 90, then each member of the group gets 90. If you get 70, then each group gets 70. It already happened in the past year that some people didn't choose their group mates to be the best possible people they could recruit in the group, but they just choose the group mate to be from their room, right? The result was that the group grade was not so great because, of course, the students were not selected by merit, but by physical distance. And then the students said, oh, but I did more for this challenge. I worked harder. I did this. But they got a lower grade. And so that's a trade-off. You do what you want, but then if you get a lower grade because you didn't choose the best students for the group, then that's a trade-off. Yeah. Is it clear?
Yeah, very clear, very clear.
Other questions? Are there other questions? I'll let you prepare if you need to type away. Nobody uses Slack. Okay. So please, okay, just before we move on. So you see that there is the Otter AI joining. This is an AI that we really like. And you can click this link. And sometimes if the meeting recording is too long or whatever, you don't want to go through all the link, then you can use the Otter AI notes to, let's say, go to some specific part of the class, right? So this is very useful because, let's say, if the recording is an hour, but you just care about some specific aspect of the conversation, you just click there and you talk to the Otter AI and you ask the Otter AI at which point something was discussed, so that you just use the Otter AI notes. This AI tool came up 6 months ago, basically, and I have hundreds of hours every month with this tool. I really love it. It's very, very useful. Okay, any other question? One more minute, and then we go with the self-skill presentation.
Hello. Can you maybe give some more details on how you will let us choose our own groups in phase 2 of the program?
So phase 1 ends in midterm week. After that one there, let me see if I have the PDF. After that, we will release a PDF where you have we release an Excel file where you see the student ID and their profile. So the profile means the role that they take usually in the class. So if they are a leader, doers, or thinkers, and then usually what is how they are scored by the other members of the group. Okay? Let me see. Give me a second. Let's see if I find the Excel, because Paul. So Paul is Steve. Student profile. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, let me give me a second. Drive Google. Let me see if I'm finding the student profile. Student profile. Maybe it's this file here. Student contacts. Let's see if it's here. Okay. No. Student profile. No, I cannot find it. Sorry. Anyway, so okay, so let's go back. So after the first meeting week, we pulled together all the intra-group evaluation. From the intra-group evaluation, we see which student took which roles and what's the score that they received. Then we pick the, let's say, 5 people that have the best leadership skills, and they are assigned as leaders. This is if we don't receive enough leaders, or and we need to complement the number of leaders. Once we have the leaders fixed, then we release to everybody the description of the student profiles, and then the leaders will receive messages over Slack or whatever of the students that want to be part of the group, and the leaders will decide who will be in the group. Next challenge, this repeats again, right? For every challenge, the student leader can decide which to put in, who to put in the group, and how to address the challenge. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So just to confirm, if you would be a leader, then you definitely cannot join a group with another leader, because
Yeah, of course.
yeah. And does every, like, of the leader people, does everybody get at the same time the possibility to choose people? Because it seems like that would be
Yeah,
a
of
lot
course.
of rush, maybe, because like if you already have a favorite pick or something.
Correct.
Okay.
But usually, yeah. So usually, that's why I think so 2 things. So that's why we like people to volunteer as leaders, so that we are not the one picking, but the students, they take the role of themselves. Because sometimes it happens that you have some very good students, and they want to work with other very good students, because everybody knows each other, and you know that your friend is also very smart, and that's why he's your friend. And so so some people don't want to be leaders so that they can work with other smart people. And also, yeah, usually during phase 1, people already decide who they want to work with. And so if you volunteer as a leader and you find a good person that you want to work with for the next 2 phases, you try to lock them down very early, right? You're like, oh, you are good at coding. We need a person which is good at doing presentations. So I'll keep you for the role of coder, and then I look for somebody good for presentations. Okay, other questions? Other questions? Also, we will do something like this, because this is something that we had a problem with a while ago. So we're going to give you something like
Hello, Professor, sorry.
Come again.
Oh, okay.
Go
Because
ahead.
I noticed the announcement about CS109A on the E3 platform, and I'm wondering if the semester's course will closely follow the content from the course, including the lectures and labs.
Yes. So yeah, basically you see that, yeah, we just follow the set of slides very closely. So this when we do the topics. But again, really the frontal lecture for me, it's not important, meaning that if you look online and you put in the topic, so let me tell you what happens. You receive the challenge which will cover a topic that I discussed in class the week before or 2 weeks ahead. Because we have, let's say, the 2 weeks in which you're doing the challenge. In those 2 weeks, I will cover 2 different topics, and then one of those 2 different topics will end up in the next challenge. So if you want to follow the classes online, you just look up, you just join and you follow the class. I said that you don't want to join the class and you just want to go online and follow some other better professor that has the slides online, perfectly fine with me. You will just go to the Otter AI notes. You will ask the Otter AI notes what are the topics discussed in class. The Otter AI will tell you that we discuss KNN and KNN regularization. You will take that, go to Google, look for some nice classes from somebody that you prefer, follow those classes. No problem for me. And then once you receive the challenge for over that topic, you will perform the challenge and you will rinse and repeat. So basically, if you want to, the topics are the one covered in the schedule. If you want to come to class and follow them with me, perfectly fine. If you want to look videos on YouTube, perfectly fine. If you prefer to just look at the presentation slide, perfectly fine. So everything is up to you. Yeah. Does this answer your question?
Yes,
Very good.
thanks.
So let me discuss a little bit. We're going to do something like this, okay? And please pay attention to this. So we're going to send you a spreadsheet, right? And we're going to put the names of the people that are following the class. And then you can decide how you want people to contact you, right? So you can put your email, you can put your Slack ID, you can put your line ID, you can put your Facebook profile, and you can put your Instagram handles. If you don't want to give out your personal email or your NYCU email, what you can do is as follows. You go on Google, you open a new email account, you forward the email from that email account to your personal email account, and then once you want to communicate with other people, you use the email, or you use this email to register on Slack. And why do we do this? Because of course we have to be mindful that there could be some harassment, let's say. So some people might want to harass some other students in the class. So if you think, if you want to minimize the risk of being harassed, which is, it never happened before, but we want to be cautious, then what you will do is that you will have a secondary email and use the secondary email for both Slack and to put in this document so that people will not contact you on your personal email. As I said, problem never happened before, but we want to be a little bit cautious. Then what happens is that if you decide to leave the class, let me put it this way. Some people, they stop following the class, but they don't bring us the paper that they drop the class until, let's say, 2 weeks before the class ends. So if you decide that you do not want to be part of the challenge and you do not want to be assigned to groups in phase 1 from that point on, please go back here and you use a highlight color to say, oh, I don't want to be assigned to any challenge anymore. Okay, so during phase 1, what happens is that some people have decided they don't want to, they're going to drop the class, but they are not considerate toward others, so they don't tell the TA, they don't tell anybody. So please don't be inconsiderate and let us know if you drop the class, and in particular, go back to this Excel file and mark yourself as no longer active. Okay, so these 2 things, right? So make sure that if you don't want to share your personal email, you don't share your personal email. And then if you decide not to participate to the class, please let us know and mark yourself here. Okay. Good. Yeah.
I
Very
have
good.
a question regarding the team leaders. Now,
Yeah.
between phase 1 and 2, is there any chance to change the team leaders if someone says, no, I don't want to be a team leader anymore, or even if someone says, yeah, I would like to try to be a team leader, is there any chance to try?
Of course. Yeah. So if you don't want to be just a team leader for a certain set of challenge, you just let us know, because
Okay.
You're like, oh, I want to try to be, as you said, I want to be a team leader for this challenge. You just tell us, and we assign you as a team leader. So usually for us, it's very hard to get team leaders. So it never happens. It never happened so far in our experience that we had more team leaders than what we needed. Usually we have fewer team leaders than the ones that we need. So that's usually the situation. So yeah, for sure you can try.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other question, guys? Okay, Elton. Yeah. So I'll just add you to this file. Then after the class, we share the Excel file with everybody. Please make a version for what is here. Good. Okay, if there are no other questions, we discuss a little bit about soft skills. As I said, no need ever to attend to a class because especially this part of the class is mostly my opinions. So it's my perception of things. So if you don't think it's relevant, go ahead. So what I want to just stress is, again, the fact that in my personal experience, Taiwanese students, they usually never have the chance to develop their soft skills. This is because the educational system, it's mostly focused on grades and on measurable performance and on technical skills, which makes sense from the cultural perspective, from whatever perspective you want, it makes sense. And my point is that I believe that increasingly soft skills are necessary. And if you try to develop your soft skills now in this class, which is the only class that does this, then it's going to benefit you in the future. Okay? If you do not believe me, no problem. If you want to discuss it, we can discuss it. But again, these are mostly my opinion. Okay? So remember this as we move forward. So as I said, the presentation on soft skills and why I think you should care, even if most of you will think that this is not relevant. So, as we said before, hard skills are the ones that are easy to define, right? Because the hard skills are the ones that involve a machinery, a task to be completed using a certain tool. For example, how to use a computer, how to do KNN regression using a computer, how to use an oscilloscope. And these are the skills that you will put on your CV, right? On your CV, you put the class that you have taken, the degree that you have earned, the qualifications that you have achieved. And these are the skills that usually you will focus on a class. And the soft skills are all other skills, and all other skills that a job requires that are not technical skills. So it's a negative definition in a sense. And mostly, these two things are focused on the interaction with other people in the company, with other workers, and the interaction with yourself, right? Because sometimes the skill that you have to do, for example, with conflict resolution, they are half on the way you interact with others to resolve conflict, and half are you within yourself and to talk to yourself in order to resolve the conflict inside yourself, right? And these are the skills that will eventually determine your success, I believe. And of course, these are the topics that we want in the class. Let's put a nice picture. So the hard skills are the one easy to define because they are a matter of expertise, math and statistics, data science, technological skills. And the soft skills are problem solving, cooperation, communication, curiosity, and creativity. And this is the slide that we saw before. So the research has highlighted that most jobs will require more soft skills than technical skills. But the reality is that usually companies, they spend in development of workers in terms of their hard skills. So they send them to some technical course or they do some continued education courses. But the soft skills, usually there's not much investment in most companies and in most universities on soft skills. And why is this? Probably because they are not easy to convey, right? Because if you want to know about how to use an oscilloscope, you can read a book. Somebody can give you a homework on how to use the oscilloscope, and you can check that the output is correct. Somebody can give you a test on how to use an oscilloscope, and you can measure that. But if somebody asks you, well, what can I do to improve my communication? There is only so far that you can attain to a book. Right? If one wants to learn to be a good leader, there is only so much that one can try to practice as a homework to be a good leader. These are skills that are usually harder to acquire because they are not easily transmittable and measurables. And this is another nice plot that describes the amount of people that work in the 4 different types of job, right? One is low math, low social skills, high math, low social skill, low math, high social skill, high math, high social skills. Okay, and this is the year from 1980 to 2010. People categorized these jobs, and then they saw how many people tended to fall in one of these jobs. They started from zero, and then they see the increase and decrease of this type of jobs. So when they did the survey, they balanced everything out so that the percentage of these jobs was the same, and then they measured the relative change. Of course, the jobs that are most required are the high math, high social. So if you have high social skills and you have high technical knowledge, then of course you are done in life. The question is, can you have a successful career having a high technical skills but low social skills? And the answer is no. The answer is that usually you will have a better career if you have low technical skill but high social skills, with respect to have low social skill and high mathematical skills. And this is not surprising, right? Because you can think that the value that you have in a company is part in that of producing knowledge and producing innovation, but most of it will be to facilitate the movement of information across people, right? So as an organization grows larger and grows more complex, and the objectives become more abstract and more high level, then it's clear that the circulation of information from, let's say, the periphery of the organization toward the center and vice versa, they are more valuable than the creation of new knowledge, right? The creation of new knowledge sort of will survive, how to put it, an organization will survive with low innovation but high circulation of knowledge, rather than having a lot of innovation that doesn't circulate. So if everybody is in a company comes up with a product idea that will earn billions of dollars, but this idea doesn't travel inside the organization, this company will fail. But if you have one idea for a product that makes $1 billion, and this idea is communicated perfectly to everybody in the company, then you can still make $1 billion, right? So it's easy to understand why the situation is the way it is. The other thing is decision making, right? So if you work with Taiwanese engineers and you tell them an idea or something that you want to do, they will always tell you, oh, that's a good idea, let me ask my boss, okay? Because I think the management style in Taiwan is very much very hierarchical, right? So you have a boss and you do whatever the boss tells you to do, right? But of course, as we discussed before, right, if we assume that the hierarchical job is becoming more abstract and more focused on creativity and research, and many tasks are automated, then it's clear that the decision making of a single worker will need to increase and will need to be very effective, right? So you might think that once you're done, you're going to go to a job and you're going to just ask your boss what to do. But of course, this is not going to happen, right? Most likely, you will have to take a set of decisions independently in your job. Otherwise, there will be too many decisions for your boss to take into to physically manage. So again, the message here is my message, right? Is that the generative AI will reduce the relevance of hard skills, because as we said, the higher technology readiness levels will be completely taken over by AI. What will remain as unique will be the more research and ideation and innovation capabilities, because it will not be relevant for you to be able to program, to write a report, to translate, to book. All these tasks will be taken over by the AI, and so the only skill that will remain will be the soft skills, the skills that help you be more innovative, be more creative, be more collaborative, right? So that then you can focus on the ideation of new products. And I like this figure, which is called the Bloom taxonomy of education. So as the requirement of the job market change, and they become more abstract and more focused on higher, on more fundamental technology readiness levels, this is also reflected in what a teacher should do, right? So in this Bloom taxonomy describes basically what are the pedagogical levels from the more fundamental to the more abstract. Okay, so when you can think about when you're in your education, from when you were in first grade to when you are at the university. Of course, the first thing that you have to learn as a human, and also what is the lowest level of the lowest achievement of teaching is to remember. Let's say that you go to kindergarten and you have to remember new words, right? After you remember, they have to be able to understand. So a teacher should be there for you to understand concepts. Then you have to be able to apply this new concept, to analyze, to evaluate, and to create. So of course, this taxonomy goes from the simplest educational objective to the most complex educational objective. So it means if you guys are moving toward more abstract level of more high level work achievements, then also I have to move from on the taxonomy level from higher level, right? So if a few years, let's say 100 years ago, there were the only informations about the Fourier transform were in books, so I had to have you memorize the Fourier transform pairs. Then now I don't have to worry about you memorizing this because you can find it on the web, right? If before I had to worry about explaining to you the concept of integration and make sure that you understand integration, now I don't have to worry about it because you can find a YouTube video that explains to you how Riemann integration works. So you understand that as more technological tools emerge to facilitate teaching, then also my abilities should move to a higher level of this Bloom taxonomy. So that's what we're trying to do. And that's why we want to focus on the creation, right? We want to focus on cooperation, generation, construction of new concept. And the way that we want to do this in a group level, right? At the cooperation level. And there is this Max Planck. So you guys, the German ones will know Max Planck. And people will know the Planck constant. And Planck also has another contribution, which is non-scientific, which is the so-called Planck principle, which says that a new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponent and making them see the light, but rather because its opponent eventually die. A new generation grows up that is familiar with this. So he was talking about, for example, concept in physics, right? Newtonian physics. The point of this is that Newtonian physics was not defeated by Einsteinian physics, but rather all the people that were old enough to remember Newtonian physics, they just died, and all the new people, they read the Einstein paper, and so they were more familiar with Einsteinian physics than classical physics. So now we have everybody understand the theory of relativity. And then the people that studied quantum when they were young, they grew up to be professors that were familiar with quantum, and the people that only understood relativity theory, they died. So now we talk about string theorem and quantum theory, and we don't talk about Einsteinian physics. So this is, of course, true beyond the scientific environment, right? So the idea here is that ideas don't triumph by their own merit, but because the people that are familiar with these ideas eventually die. And new people arise that want to change things, and so things change. So the same here, the same is true here, right? So there was probably a generation of teachers that they thought that the technical skills were the most important thing, the memorization was the most important thing, that, for example, being in class and doing a proof in class was the most important thing, and these teachers are eventually died out. So we are left with all teachers that are focused on different paradigms of pedagogy. So hopefully the situation is going to change because of this, right? Because new professors try to come with new pedagogical method and try to do things. One day I'm going to die, and I don't know what the next teacher is going to do. I'll probably just talk to you from the metaverse and just give you quotes from literature from the Russian authors. Who knows? Okay, this is the slide that we discussed before. So we want to say that soft skills are very hard to define because they are sort of defined as a negative. These are the 11 ones that we discussed before. I think we can all agree that communication is the most important soft skill. Leadership also, and teamwork also, and then time management. I think many of you they have time with time management because usually you respond to deadlines. So there was a certain day you're going to have an exam, a certain day you have to deliver a homework, but actually you always do everything at the last moment, and you never plan very accurately how to subdivide your time so that you don't do this, right? So when the deadline arrives, you just do all the work in that 6 hours before, and then you pray to God that everything is going to go well, and that's how things progress. So the time management, I think it's an underestimated skill for you guys. Adaptability, as we said, also in the cultural context, work ethic, it's also another one. If you commit to somebody that you're going to do something, then you're going to do it. I think many of you also have some issues with this. You're not so strongly committed to deliver what you promised to. So this is the same slide as before, just some example of things. So you can go through this slide by yourself. Of course, communication is mostly active listening, right? So this is something that it's very hard to engage when you are in a team, right? If you're in a team of 5 people, then you should be talking only 20% of the time and listen 80% of the time. And this active listening is very hard. So you can go through these examples yourself. But I think that you should believe me when I tell you that hopefully in the class you're going to observe this team player effect. So the team player effect is that if people start cooperating, then the output of the group is multiplied by a certain factor with respect to just the capabilities of all its members, because working in group really enhances your productivity, right? So if you had this experience before, you know that if you put 3 people that try to come up with an idea, with a solution, usually they come up with much better ideas than if you let all of them work singularly and just try to move, try to sum up the ideas that come up when everybody works by themselves. So we discussed a little bit cultural differences before, and I think we can return to this topic in this slide. So what you want to do is that you want to consider the globalization of the workforce and the diversification of the workforce. Of course, globalization of the workforce, you understand it. Companies usually now are much larger. They spread over different companies. They consider the different campuses over different cultures. So this is something that you have to pay attention to. But there is also diversification, basically in terms of gender, ethnicity, ages, and cultural background. Okay? So for the globalization, you need to have a perspective, a global perspective on communication. So when you communicate, you have to understand that you are talking to people that respond to different verbal and non-verbal cues depending on their culture, and that generally people have very different cultural backgrounds, and these diversities, they really need to be accounted carefully because people respond very differently to the same set of inputs, let's say. And as we said, cultural aspects need to be considered very carefully, and I hope that you guys will be exposed to this because communication style changes across culture, and building an effective team across culture is something very, very challenging. This is the same slide as before. This is Edward T. Hall's 4 dimension: time, context, space, and information flow. So, for example, as we said, time can be monochronous or polychronous, so whether you are supposed to be on time or you can be late. Context, high and low context. This is the example of American versus Japanese. Space, again, the idea of boundaries. So, for example, in American, they have this bubble of private space that other cultures don't have. And information flow, right? It's something that we discussed already. This is the example of low context and high context. So low context means that the majority of the information is explicitly communicated, whether high context is that the context of the communication provides a lot of cues, right? I think, for example, if you work in Taiwan, you will have noticed this. For example, in Taiwan, business is conducted on a personal knowledge basis, right? So if you want a deal to go through, the seller and the buyer, they tend to have a very close relationship, meaning that they know each other and they trust each other. So a deal goes through based more on trust. And this is very different to what, for example, happens in the US, where there is a price, people get together, one guy agrees to pay a price, the other one agrees to deliver the goods at this price, right? So it is very like it's a very sharp difference in which business is made, right? So if, for example, think that you go to work in a company and somebody tells you, oh, you have to go to dinner with the buyer because we want to sell to this guy, so you have to get to know the buyer. And so you're like, well, why am I going to dinner with a person to which I'm selling something, right? What is the purpose of it? He just has to pay a price, and when he pays the price, then I'm going to deliver a good. And this is how an American will see the situation, whether a Taiwanese will say, oh, of course, you want to establish trust first. And once the trust is established, then the transaction can take place. So you can imagine that this type of differences, they really affect your effectiveness as a worker, right? So you really have to take into account the context in which you are working, okay? So then workforce diversification, that's something that we can discuss. So in Taiwan, there is a very good female representation in government, for example, something that you observe because we also have a female president. And decision-making roles in education and private companies in Taiwan are pretty good. So there is a very good representation in general. But and the gender gap is also smaller, right? So there was think about these numbers, right? So the gender gap was 17% in 2009, and now it's 14% in 2023. So the gender pay gap is decreasing in Taiwan. But still, there are a lot of challenges in engineering because only 13% of engineers in Taiwan are female. So this is something that we try to consider all the time, that it is much harder to be a female engineer than it is to be a male engineer because the context, it's usually male dominated. And so the type of communication that takes place, it's a communication which is, how can I say this, which is more male style communication than female style communication. Of course, these are generalization, right? But usually there is, on average, a way in which communication happens between females and then a way in which communication for males. So there is something that we have to try to take into account without any judgment, okay? But this diversification is only one diversification because, of course, the other diversity are cultural and ethnic. There's also an age diversity, right? So in some specific environments, people are discriminated by age. So you can imagine that very young workers are discriminated, very old workers are discriminated. But of course, everybody should be judged just based on their ability, disability, LGBTQ, neurodiversity. These are all topics that you understand. For example, regarding neurodiversity, I think it's something that we need to be more aware of. For example, there are a lot of dyslexic people. There are a lot. There is a percentage of the working population that has dyslexia. Dyslexia is a particular difficulty in processing written information. So there are some people that much prefer verbal communication because written communication is too challenging for them. And we should be able to have a working environment that considers this difference across people. And yeah, let me just give you a slide of why you should worry about this now. Of course, it's just an experience for you to follow this class and working under these assumptions. But I think it's immediately relevant. So you're going to see the benefit of working on your soft skills right away. You want to future-proof your career. You want to be aware at the moment of what are the soft skills importance in the workplace. Avoid challenges as you move on because you start thinking about these problems now, and then have a strong foundation that recognizes that the value, your effectiveness as a worker it goes beyond your technical capabilities. Okay, I think that's about it. So if you have any comments or concerns, you let me know. Otherwise, we call it quits for today, and we talk next week. Yeah, that's it. Any questions or comments? What happens than required? If there are more volunteers, there is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There are not going to be more volunteers than leader spaces. So right now we have 30 people. So we expect 6 leaders. It has never happened in a year and a half that we do the course in this way, that we have more volunteers than leadership positions. That's it. But I guess if we have more volunteers, then we'll try to change the leaders from two different challenges, right? We can rotate around the leaders and then see which leaders have the highest score and then choose that subset. But personally, I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, any other questions or comment? I'll give you some time to type. Don't be shy, guys. Especially this second part of the presentation. There are many personal opinions, right? So I hope I conveyed things, by stressing these are opinions, right? Later on in the course, it's just going to be math and scientific truth. But at the beginning, allow me to express the reasons why we choose this pedagogy. Yeah. Any questions? Okay. So if there are no questions, then I'm going to be online for 5 more minutes, and then we can talk over Slack. As I said, so we're going to give you an Excel file to put in the contact information. And then on Friday, we're going to release the first challenge. And then next week, we do a quick try on the elevator pitch. And then especially if you want to volunteer to be a leader, let us know, because we will consider this by Friday when we assign the new groups. The first challenge should be just something fun. No need to worry. It will not be graded. And as I said, it's just for us to fine-tune all the submission and all the submission tools. And then, yeah, so I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to be online for 5 more minutes. If you have any questions, write in chat. Otherwise, okay, ciao guys, have a good day.